Welcome to Hodge, Podge, Australia. Today for Valentine's Day we're making this beautiful heart-shaped cake complete with a chocolate basket and topped off with heart candies. Now, some of the things you will need for this cake is a cake board. You will need a heart-shaped cake. I've just baked a nice chocolate cake in my heart-shaped tin. I have some chocolate ganache that I have left to thicken. I have some beautiful gummy hearts. You could use any sort of Valentine's Day candies that you want at all. I've got these lovely gummy hearts. I have some white chocolate and I have some pink colouring to tint the white chocolate for the basket with, which is a fuchsia, and it's not going to focus. So let's move on. First thing to do is put a little bit of ganache on your cake board to stick down your cake, and then ganache your cake. So you don't need to be particular with the ganaching on this one. You can cut the cake in half as well and do a layer of ganache if you'd like. Just make sure that it's all nice and covered because you need those sides to be completely covered so that the chocolate basket can stick to it. But it's all going to be covered. I mean, around the sides you'd like it to be a little bit more smooth, so make sure you take the time with that, but you can really layer that chocolate on top of the chocolate heart so that you get lots of ganache when you cut into it, because it's all going to be covered with candy. The next thing you need is to get some baking paper and cut off a really big long piece and fold it in half if it's quite thick baking paper, or wide baking paper I should say. Fold that down in half so it's nice and even, and then measure it out around your cake so that you are covering the entire thing. Now I'm going to be starting from the top, like the little dip inside the heart when I actually layer out my chocolate basket, but for now I'm just going to measure out how much of the baking paper I need and cut that to size. That way we know exactly how big our chocolate basket needs to be and we can move on to that preparation. The last thing that we need to do with our baking paper before we start is just give it a little bit of a mark for where we want the chocolate basket to come up to. We need the height marked on there because it's quite high baking paper even when it's folded in half. You don't want to make a gigantic basket because that's going to look silly and it has more chance of cracking because it doesn't have that support. So I've just added a little bit of chocolate ganache onto the baking paper just to mark off the top of the middle of my cake so that the basket is going to come right up into that middle on the sides, because my cake, I didn't level it because I don't think it needs to be done. I don't think it needs to be leveled. So I just need to make sure that that basket comes up as high as the middle of the cake. Make sure you wash off any ganache that you've gotten onto your baking paper before you do your chocolate basket, otherwise that's going to transfer onto your chocolate. Moving on to our chocolate basket. If you haven't seen the tutorial for my other chocolate basket, the link is popping up for you up in the top corner there, but let's show you how to do it again. So what I have done is I have simply melted some white chocolate and I have coloured it with my fuchsia colour. I'm then going to pour all of that white chocolate into a Ziploc bag. You can use a piping bag if you want. If you're doing a really big basket, maybe a piping bag might be a better way to do it, but a Ziploc bag works just fine. So pour all your chocolate in there, get the air out, and then snip off the end. Now my basket comes to just out of frame, so trust me, you won't see the first 2 milliseconds of my piping, but I'm just going to cut off the end there, and all I'm going to do is some squiggles on the paper so that it all joins, but it's just lots of loops, and I'm going to go from the bottom up to my crease. So that's why I folded that over. I know what level I'm going to go up to, so just do that over at least twice because you want a nice firm basket. If you don't do it over twice, you've got more chances of it cracking. So do it down once and then start again. You can see I'm just going over it twice, so it's all going to join and it has its extra support. Next, we are going to let that dry, and by let that dry I mean leave it sitting on the bench until it is touch dry, and you can see that I can still move it a little bit there. It's not cracking, it's not completely solid, but it's touch dry, and that's what we want because we still need it to be flexible while we put it around our cake. So bringing the cake back in, you can see I'm going to start at the top of my heart and I'm going to simply bend that chocolate basket all the way around the cake, just using the bottom of the baking paper as my guide, and have it join back up at the top. Now if you're in a humid climate, you are going to need to put this in the fridge to set properly before you can peel that baking paper off. So just keep that in mind. Leave the baking paper on. Don't try to peel that chocolate off yet because it's going to bend and it's going to crack. Trust me. So put it in your fridge, make sure that chocolate gets good and hard, and then you can peel it away. And even when you peel it away, you still have the chance of breakages, which you can see there, but don't worry, I'm going to show you how to fix that. So don't panic if you get a breakage. It's very easy to repair. So take off your baking paper, move that away, clean up any shards that have fallen off. If anything's fallen onto the top of the cake, you can leave it there if you want to because it's going to get covered in gummies. But take away any broken parts on the back of the board and we will move on to fixing that broken part. Firstly, I'm going to fill my heart with all of my heart candies just so that that's done because I did drop one onto my chocolate basket and cracked a little bit more of that chocolate. So I'm going to put all the hearts on first before I do any repairs. That way I can do all of my repairs in one hit. So while I fill this up with my gummy hearts, make sure you subscribe to us here at Hodge, Podge Australia. We do upload weekly. We have such a variety of different bakes and cakes that you can make, so make sure you check out our playlist as well. Follow us on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. We're on there. That'll keep you up to date on the different things that we've uploaded onto this channel. But let's fix this broken section. Now, I hope you haven't thrown out your baking paper. If you have, you can always just get a new piece. But the best way to do it is take away anything that has been broken because you're basically just going to make a whole new section to put in there. So clear off any of that chocolate, which is just going to stick to that ganache. Could you believe it? Of course, because we put it in the fridge. So anyway, take away any extra shards, melt a bit more chocolate, recolor it, and do yourself a new swirl of chocolate. Just a little section. Measure out how much you need to fill in that section, and then pop that into the fridge so that it's a nice quick set. Then you can simply grab a bit of extra ganache, because I'm sure you still had some ganache left over. Make sure you do. And stick that straight onto the basket. And that is the easiest way to fix any sort of broken chocolate section. Just add in a new section. Because it's all looped like that, nobody's even going to notice that it wasn't connected in the first place. And that is how you make a candied heart Valentine's Day gummy chocolate basket cake. My gosh, that's a mouthful. Thank you so much for watching us here at Hodge Podge Australia, and we'll see you again real soon.